Welcome to our 2022 RWTA Australian Cold Chain podcast series, where we discuss all manner of topics that affect our temperature-controlled industry. We like to give you a proper introduction to the people that invest in the cold chain as members and partners so that you can get the maximum benefit out of the relationship. Today, I'd like to introduce you to Ryan Whittaker, the Director of Complete Ed, the education and funding experts. Welcome, Ryan, and thank you for meeting with me today.
Thanks, Marianne.
Good to see you. First up, overview. Tell me, Ryan, a little bit about Complete Ed and what you do for industry.
Sure. So very long story short, I'll try and keep it as brief as possible. So myself and Ashley Langdon, my business partner, have been working in this space for about 34 years combined. And when I say this space, as our sort of tagline alludes to, government funding and workplace training is really our bread and butter. And what we do is we work with the various governing bodies, whether it's apprenticeship centres, state government, federal government, to help employers access government funding towards workplace-based training, hiring of staff, upskilling and development of staff, continuous improvement, or anything that sits in that sort of HR capital space. How we do that is basically we have full-time consultants working for our organisation that are in constant contact with the government and the various websites that are available to give information on the programs that are available. We then unpick them and try and understand them, because that's the biggest complication is going through those guidelines and figuring out exactly what that means. And then we take that to market to employers to help them to actually access it. And that's through a variant of options. It might be we help with the tender writing. It might be we find the consultants or the training institutes to partner with. It might be just identifying what the actual need is in the business. And like I said, we've been doing that for quite some time now. We've done a lot of work in transport, because obviously, 2 years ago, there was some big changes around the NHBR and what their expectations were on the industry around education. So we found a bit of an opportunity there to help transport organisations access the funding and the upskilling required, because it's not their bread and butter. Not a lot of these organisations have a big HR or training team. So to have an external consultant to come in and say, hey, Marianne, what are you looking for? Great, leave it with me. I'll come back to you with 3 or 4 different options. We'll find all the funding for you that's available at a state and federal level, and really just package it all up together.
It sounds like it's worth its weight in gold. What you're doing is you're actually saving companies time in a space that is not something that they specialise in. You go and do all of the hard work and come back and say, this is where we can save you money. This is where we can train up your people. And this is the way you can do it. And you also find the registered training organisations and the training facilities. That's correct for them as well.
Absolutely, and most importantly on that is we know the good, the bad and the ugly. We've been around for a long time in this space, so we only work with your top tier providers that deliver a program that's both practical and meaningful to the staff. There's none of this tick and flick or for the sake of doing it training opportunities. That really is outcome driven to make sure that you can be confident your staff have received the training that they'll actually benefit from, but it's delivered in a way that they are able to retain the information. So a lot of our courses, especially in this space, are far more practical than theory. Some components obviously are a requirement to be theory-based or classroom-based, but we really focus on making sure that people understand what they're being taught and they're able to demonstrate that, rather than, like I said, sitting down and doing a Q&A spreadsheet and say, yep, all your staff are qualified in this area. It's like, show us. Let's see, what's your safety ratings, what's your incident reports. Let's actually have a look at what the stuff means and really break it down.
So it sounds like it's because the RWTA have got a lot of members. We've got about 100 members in total. And there's a certain percentage, of course, that are going to be the refrigerated warehouses as well as the refrigerated truck space, which is expected. However, we've got labour hire companies, we've got materials handling companies, panel companies, all sorts of companies that, specialise in technology and automation, all sorts of things. But you could actually help them as well. It's not just the cold chain companies themselves, it's also the others in addition.
Absolutely, and that's when we work with an organisation. We have the top-down approach. So we run anything from your senior management team, looking at senior leadership courses, anything from an MBA. Even we've got programs that are available, right down to people that are actually operational in the workforce, doing things, and everything in between: sales, leadership, transport, logistics, compliance, OH&S, you name it. There's about 15,500 formal qualifications on the AQF listing. We work with about 49 registered training organisations throughout Australia. So we quite often say to businesses, there's very little we can't do. It's just where you have the need, and talk to your people and do more of a skills matrix.
Yeah, that would be amazing, I think, for a lot of companies, because the HR departments and the training departments quite often in companies, they work together, but it's also hard to find that funding to bring it all together. So I think you'll be of enormous use. You've worked with some of the cold chain companies already, haven't you?
Exactly, and that's what I was just about to say. And then secondary status, obviously, like we talk about training, we talk about funding, but really it's about understanding the industry and the people. And we work with enough of them to know that every business is different. Every business has a different need. Even within cold transport, what one company needs or wants may be completely different to the next. And quite often it depends on, obviously, what they've done previously, what the company's focus or drivers for the next 12 months. There's a lot more driving factors behind it, rather than just, hey, you're a transport company, here's a certificate 3 in supply chain. Quite often, more often than not, we find that that's not the solution the business is looking for, and there's a bit of a bigger or deeper picture there to be discovered.
Yeah, that's incredible. If you were to say anything to the companies today, what would you ask them to do? As far as working with Complete Ed, what would you like them to know about you?
So generally what we say to businesses when we're engaging them initially, so if I was cold calling or reaching out to them, the 3 main questions we ask the business is, have you got any development needs for your staff? And the way we ask that question is, if I wrote you a blank check right now and said, Marianne, here's a blank check, but you can only spend it on the development of your people, where would you spend it? That's the first question we ask. The second one is, what's your staff turnaround like? Have you hired any new staff in the last 3 to 6 months? And then lastly, business improvement. What are you talking about in your toolbox meeting? What's the business challenges at the moment? If I could come in with a magic wand and say, let me help you out with this. Those 3 questions, or the information from those, help me identify whether there's an opportunity for Complete Ed to help the business. And to answer that, in first case, well, obviously the first one, if they tell us what their training needs are, we more often than not can say, great, yep, no, here's a box that we can more or less fit you into with some customization that will cover off that outcome. Secondly, looking at the actual employment of staff, there's a gamut of wage subsidies, new employment grants, hiring incentives in the market at the moment. So we can say, great, well, we might be able to build a budget here for you. Worst case scenario, just get you some funding that you're eligible for, you didn't even know. And then lastly, around the business improvement strategies, just actually having a look at the platform of the staff capability and where we can fill some gaps potentially around some continuous improvement or lean grants or whatever it might be.
Fantastic. Ryan, thank you for giving us an overview of Complete Ed today. And for everyone watching today, we look forward to seeing you at the upcoming RWTA 80th Conference and Exhibition between the 21st and 23rd of August this year. Look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you, Ryan, and I hope to see you there as well.
Thanks, Marianne.